Hello, everyone. So I just got this podcast boom mic set up with the pop filter and all that and the windscreen. So I figured that I would just make a quick video to test it out while I'm at it. And what better thing to make a podcast on, see YouTube video on, than whether or not to be a podcaster or a YouTuber, and why I decided to go more heavily into the podcast realm. And the simple reason, the biggest difference, is the amount of time it takes to edit a video versus editing an audio file. And not just time, but also just ease, because you're going to have to deal with videos. It's bigger software, bigger files, more time to upload and process and convert and everything. And it also takes more skill. You have to know everything you have to know to edit a podcast, and then also all the video editing stuff, because you still need all the skills that allow you to make your voice and stuff sound good. So I think that YouTube, if you're solo and don't have a lot of time to edit and stuff, YouTube is best for the way I do it, where I just record these videos in QuickTime and talk to the camera, and then it's just a one shot, and I don't do too much. The most editing I'll do in a video is stringing clips together if I misspeak or lose track of where I am, but most of the time I'll just let it ride, and that allows me to save a lot of time and cover more topics. But I realized that why not just podcast at that point? Because if I'm not going to edit, if I'm not going to do really fancy real life lore type or Kurtzagot style educational YouTube, like crazy animations and stuff, then I might as well podcast so that I can edit more and edit better and have a more professional looking and sounding channel. So my podcast is on Spotify now, Zero Sodity, same as the YouTube channel's title. And so I only have 3 episodes published, and I'm more careful with those, where I try to make sure that they're at least decently looked over for any obvious mistakes, and then I also add intro and outro music and stuff like that. So all of that takes more time, but with YouTubing, man, you really gotta know what you're doing video editing wise to take it to that next level, But if you want to do something like the tech tips guys, or just streaming videos, right, where you're just down in the bottom left corner and you're talking about here's the kinds of videos that you can do without a lot of editing time. You can look at my Steam review videos. I just go over my huge Steam library and review the categories of games that people can wishlist and look out for, going through all the current updates and stuff. And then, that's kind of better for YouTube because you have the visual aid of your Steam screen. I really like screen sharing videos, like my Godot board game tutorials. I think that this YouTube channel is going to mostly be made for screen sharing. And then I just won't really have, my face, the set will kind of just be in the corner. And then there will be certain special episodes. If I can ever actually get some of the interview guests to actually come to my apartment and do the interview in person, then I'll set up the camera and have the nice set and everything and put the interview on YouTube and then the podcast channel. So all the interviews will be dual episodes. And then everything that I do on the podcast gets published to YouTube also. So you can kind of focus on your podcast and leave YouTube as something that you put more content into, but not as well edited content. And then you keep your podcasts topic centered, more topic centered. Like, you notice this YouTube channel is just everything. And then I just use playlists. Well, I should use them more, but I use playlists to organize my videos. Supposed to. And on a podcast, you can kind of just keep it centered, a little bit more centered. But my topic is vague, right? My topic is how people in modern times and throughout history confront the challenges of the human condition. Okay, so that's like really broad, but it's at least a theme. Like, there's no board game tutorials, making coding a board game tutorials like there is on this channel. So I think YouTube's great for just putting everything out there that might appeal to a different amount of like wide audiences. So I can post my board game tutorial videos on the subreddit for that game engine. I can post my panic attack videos on the subreddit for that. Panic attacks. Just to find the audiences who my videos might help. The niche audiences. Who might, benefit from hearing from just some, like a random guy. So, yeah, and with podcasting, you can really it's a lot easier to get to that professional grade caliber. I'll get there pretty soon, I think. Probably like a month or two of solid podcasting. I should have a lot of like skill and stuff in the software and everything to like get things sounding pretty good on the regular. Especially with all this cool gear. Wow, a pop filter. I didn't know what any of this stuff was like 3 days ago. I just thought a microphone was a microphone. It turns out a microphone is not just it's not a microphone. Wow, microphones. Wow. I kind of just assume that you can record everything on a piece of crap and then use software to make it sound awesome, but that's not how it is. Like, there's a reason why people still spend almost, like, you can spend over $1,000, well over that, just on a mic. But there's a lot of easy, the Blue Yeti mic is the one that like every entry level podcaster buys, and it's only $100. So it's also a lot easier to get into. Like, my camera that I bought to do the YouTubing was $600. And then, like, the software is more, like, if you want Final Cut Pro. All of it's just kind of more. I think I've gotten that kind of point across. But at the same time, YouTube is much, much better. This is the advantage of YouTube in videos, guys. You can add chapters and playlist categories better. Whereas if you just have a bunch of content on a Spotify podcast, like a board game tutorial and then a panic attack episode and then something on politics, it's not as easy to do that podcasting. So I would say podcasting, you have to be a little bit more focused and directed. And then YouTube's kind of cool because people can just follow your channel and only kind of get the things that are relevant to them, because that's what'll be fed, and it's easy when you're looking at a channel. There's plenty of channels I follow. Like, I love Wendy Goon so much, a YouTuber, but I don't like his iceberg videos, even though that's like the only videos he ever does. But I like his mythology videos. They're like my favorite videos. But, it's like 1 out of every 15 of his videos. So, like, I like those icebergs. But, and also like all of his stories and things. But when he does like the massive serial killer icebergs, like 3 or 4 hour long videos going through like all kinds of characters or conspiracy theories and all those kinds of things, I've just never been into that kind of stuff. But, if it was a podcast, Wendy Goon's channel could be a podcast, but most YouTube channels would, I think, suffer from, or most like individual people YouTube channels would suffer from the lack of theming and the general lack of like focus. Anyways, I think that I've kind of said enough to demo the new setup and everything, and how and kind of why I sold I returned the camera and I used that money on just like podcasting equipment, and I bought Hindenburg Pro, the wonderful audio editing software Hindenburg Pro is awesome for making podcast episodes. And so I just bought that software instead of Final Cut Pro, and just decided to go for MP3 instead of MP4, if you know what I mean. Audio over video. And then the cool thing is that your podcast episodes can be YouTube videos and vice versa. So, you could take your podcast episodes, and then when you upload them to YouTube, you can add a slideshow, you can add all kinds of stuff to make it better, which I will do if I have podcast episodes that aren't covered on YouTube. Like my Afghan War podcast episode, I have more Afghanistan war content on this YouTube channel, so there's no need to kind of enhance that. But if it's something that's never been covered on this channel, then I might do a little extra for the YouTube version. So it's really cool that you can kind of do both. I used a website called Red Circle to distribute my podcast, and it put it up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that for me, but I've only done Spotify so far. And so, yeah, Red Circle. And it'll give you, all that does is just host your podcast, and it gives you this thing called an RSS feed, which is basically something that lets web servers, or really just any computer, like pull the feed of your podcast, so all your episodes and all that, in like a standardized format. So once you give Spotify that feed from Red Circle, they will just have your podcast up, and then you have to log into your account and claim the podcast if you have your personal account too. So it's kind of funny how that works. I think that the reason why you should podcast or YouTube is just the same reason I'm doing it. I think that, guys, I'm gonna get really serious for a second. I'm putting my thing away to get really serious. Think about how valuable it would be to have random stories and personal accounts, the voices of the unheard, the voices of the people who just kind of live out their lives, the silent majority, for 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. It would be so valuable. And so I think that in the future, I think that there's a very solid chance that all of this, every little tweet from every random idiot, every random podcast episode from every random idiot is going to have some kind of value. And I think that it won't have to all be looked over by human eyes, because you can have, for example, you could make a machine learning program that takes all the data from, the 1800s on the internet. Let's say we had internet from the 1800s. And the AI could use the data to recreate, like do polling and surveys, or recreate like what the typical person was like back then, or what somebody in Seattle was like versus somebody in Miami. And like it could all be done with machine learning. Like it doesn't even have to be that someone's going to look over it all. I think that it is valuable for everybody to contribute their experiences and their stories, because every life is unique. Every single person's life is interesting. Really. Everybody has something interesting if you really hammer them. Sometimes you have to really hammer them, but everybody does. So, most people are just kind of private, but I think that it's really cool for us to put ourselves out there, because I know that I would think it was really awesome to have just a bunch of random podcast episodes from the early 1800s, just so that some historian can tell us You know, well, what's in all of it? You know, like, what were they like? How is it different from the people who wrote the history books? Because it is different. If you read the New York Times and CNN and Fox News, and then you listen to me or listen to average people, it's different. In most of history, we don't know what the silent majority was really thinking. You know, the news is blue and red, but most Americans are purple. And you can't see purple in the history books because purple isn't what's exciting. It's the partisans and the most passionate people who drive the change. So people who are mixed, who are just kind of normal, disengaged, average people who kind of just vote for, maybe, let's say just someone who votes based on whether, like the fact that gas is so high right now. Stuff like that. Like, I would say that that's purple because you're not adhering just to one party and one ideology. And I think that most people are just kind of whatever about most things. And they're more interesting because of how they've overcome challenges. It's not because of some lofty, like, logically constructed idea they have about society or the universe. It's more about how strong they are. And everybody's strong, man. Everybody. So that's why I think we should podcast and YouTube. Just put your stories out there. I'm going to interview so many cool people. You're going to realize, like, think about how many cool people you know, and then the fact that they're going to die without people knowing who the hell they ever even were. Why don't we have all the records of all the cool people from 2021 and 2022? You know, like, hey, robots of the future. It probably won't be people. Robots of the future. You know, this is who we were. This is some of us. We were pretty chill. So be chill. If you want to be, if you want to call us your ancestors, you got to be chill. We don't want to be a bunch of assholes like the Romans and make everyone think that that's what we thought. That's what we were. So yeah, cool guys. I hope this was a cool episode. Helpful for people who are looking to get into it. It's not hard. It just takes a lot of practice. You can watch Veritasium's video on how to become a YouTuber. It's like you have to not know how bad you are in the beginning so that you just practice and get better. So yeah, see you guys.